Hello guys, welcome back to Beyond 23 Cricket Pod. Thank you again for joining us. What an incredible series we've just seen. This Border-Gavaskar trophy, we're here today to wrap it up. So much to talk about. What a comeback. 1-0 down after the first test, under pressure, get to the fifth test. The brand of cricket that we played in the fifth test, I think is something I'm so proud of when it comes to this Australian team.
Bumrah is not just the player, he's also the leader, and the others would rally.
Yeah.
Siraj was excellent in the first innings of the Sydney Test. The moment it was Siraj who had to lead, he collapsed under pressure.
I think Bumrah is the greatest bowler ever across all three formats because I'm so confused about this situation, the Rohit Sharma situation.
We lacked transparency. India should have conducted the whole issue with much more respect, dignity and grace. He is still your leader. He is still your captain. How does Virat Kohli solve this outside off-stump problem? And can he?
It's Virat Kohli. This guy can walk out and make a double 100 tomorrow.
I think Australia led the way in terms of how to appreciate Test match cricket.
Yeah.
It was something extraordinary to see that kind of support.
And let me introduce one of my closest friends, Boria Majumdar, who is not only a cricket tragic like me, but someone that has followed the game for such a long period of time, knows everything about all sports, and maybe I'm a little bit biased, but in my opinion, India's greatest sports journalist. Covers all the Olympics, have covered cricket for over 30 years now, know the Indian team as well as anyone I know. So, mate, thank you for joining us. It's such an honour to have you on our podcast.
First thing is, I should have been there and you here. That is what we have done hundreds of times.
It's a nice change, right? It's a nice change. I'm now allowed to ask you some questions. Finally, I've been wanting this my whole life.
Yes, and I've done this for 25 years, put you in that spot, but anything for you.
When was the first time you interviewed me?
I think during the 2013 series, that's when we became close in Chennai.
Yeah.
When I flew into Chennai and you were captain and you gave me your shirt after that 100 that you got.
One of the few journalists that I liked.
So correct. And then in 14, see, there's a difference between captain and leader. For me, you became leader, and one of my favorites, the way you handled the 2014 crisis. That's when you elevated yourself to being something more than a cricketer. The way you handled the Phil Hughes issue, the way you handled India-Australia during that period. The whole world was wanting to know what you are doing, whether you are playing the 2015 World Cup or not. I remember you giving me that interview at the Langham Hotel ahead of the tournament. And then every time, I mean, we've worked together for Indian media, and that's friendship.
Very kind, buddy.
And I have to say this, when the controversy happened with me, you stood by me. That's the most important. Last time when I was here in Australia, 22, again that program that we did together, and I was just quiet because I was still not sure. And you called me the other side and said, would you not interview me?
Yeah.
And all of that was that. So this is a special relationship.
Well, you're a very good man, and it's an honour to have you. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about the series, but let's start with this fifth test match. For me, if I think about this Australian team, what a comeback. 1-0 down after the first test, under pressure, get to the fifth test. The brand of cricket that we played in the fifth test, I think is something I'm so proud of when it comes to this Australian team. Paddy Cummins, the way he led, the players attacking, looking to win the last game. And I think there was a number of moments through the test match where there's examples of that, the way we attack with the ball. I know that wicket was conducive for fast bowling, and I think both teams, certainly in the first innings, utilised not great conditions. I have to say that at the SCG, my favourite ground. I didn't think that was a good pitch. But for me, the way the Australian the players attacked the game from ball one was probably the standout thing for me that turned the series around and got us that victory at the SCG. What about for you? What was the thing in that test match, the last test, that stood out for you from an Indian point of view?
See, two things. What you just said, I'll say the difference between the two sides was consistency. Australia was consistently attacking. India was inconsistently consistent. Because if you see, we got Australia out for 181. And India had a chance. Australia was to bat fourth. At lead of 200, 225 and game done. Yes, there is the Jasprit Bumrah factor. without Jasprit Bumrah, add another 50 runs. Add mentally somebody like Usman Khawaja, who did not even cross 10 hardly, right? All of a sudden, Usman Khawaja gets a 40. For me, what the problem with India was, India had their moments, but India was consistently inconsistent. Second innings also, 58 for 3, series of loose balls. But for the high point from the Sydney Test match, Rishabh Pant. That counter-attack of Rishabh Pant, I thought in that little period, Pat Cummins was finding it hard. 7 fielders in the boundary line.
Very defensive. I agree.
I thought that Rishabh Pant counter-attack for another half an hour, and it was a lead of 200.
If Bumrah's fit and bowls in the second innings,
India wins.
You think India wins with 160 on the board? I think India should have found a way to score. I know it was tough batting conditions. I thought if they made 180 with Bumrah, game over. India wins.
That is what I had predicted also. 175 with Bumrah, India wins. Because if you see, Bumrah is not just the player, he's also the leader, and the others would rally. Siraj was excellent in the first innings of the Sydney Test. The moment it was Siraj who had to lead, he collapsed under pressure. He had to level the series, win us the Border-Gavaskar trophy. India would have retained the trophy.
Yeah, correct.
So that pressure under, for Siraj, he couldn't handle that. But with Bumrah, he was the second player. He was the third bowler with Prasidh Krishna. So all of these things. So Bumrah was not just the player. Bumrah was also the glue, the kind of man who was keeping the flock together. So I think his absence was a massive issue.
I'm a big one for man of the match or player of the match and player of the series. I think should always go to the winning team. But I think they made the right decision. I think Bumrah was the player of the series. The way he bowled, the way he captained, the way he led, the way he picked India up on his own when they needed someone to pick them. I actually, and we've spoken about this before, it's very hard to compare generations or eras, and I don't think it's fair to do that. But since any bowler that has played all three formats, so not, Curtly Ambrose, Wasim Akram, Glenn McGrath, they never got to play 2020 cricket. So I'm not talking about those guys. But since 2020 cricket, one-day cricket and test cricket has come in, I think Bumrah is the greatest bowler ever across all three formats. I think he's that good.
That's a massive comment. I think that will make a headline in India as well. You're saying he's the greatest fast bowler playing all three formats of the game.
Ever. Out of all the bowlers that have played all three formats, I think he's the greatest. This guy is, I use the word freak because he's so good, so skillful, and his execution under pressure is phenomenal. He is one of a kind.
I agree. And just to add to that, you said bowled, led, conducted himself. Add batting in the third test as well.
And what a good man. And what a good man.
And he saved the follow-on with Akashdeep. Saved India that test match. Even in the Sydney test match, that little cameo in the first innings allowed India to go to 185. So he has made a telling contribution and was head and shoulders above everyone else. I only think, because in India, maybe we go with batters as brands. Maybe that's why a Rohit and a Virat are bigger brands. But I think on form, at this point, the one national treasure in the Indian cricket team that India has, who is indispensable, is Jasprit Bumrah.
I've always loved Virat Kohli and Rohit Sharma. I think Bumrah is India's most important player right now.
No debate.
Because I always think batters set a game up, bowlers win you the game. So to me, I agree with you. Speaking of leadership then, tell me about, because I'm so confused about this situation, the Rohit Sharma situation. How it played out, him standing down, him not doing the press conference before the test match and doing an interview at the end of day one. Where does Rohit sit? Is his test career over? Is he still captain? I'm confused.
And very rightly so, because the problem, and I've written about it, I've talked about it at length on Rev Sports, the problem is we lacked transparency. India should have conducted the whole issue with much more respect, dignity and grace.
Towards Rohit Sharma?
Of course. And to the team. The signal that you sent out the day before the test, match eve press conference, Gautam and Rohit should have come together. Rohit should have made the opening statement saying, for whatever reason, I'm not playing. And by the way, I take that. You are not in form. You put your best 11 on the park. I totally buy that point. But not like this. he is still your leader. He is still your captain. By not putting Rohit out there, you are sending a signal that there is a rift. There are issues, there are fissures, there are divisions. And that's what the media feeds on. All of a sudden, social media goes into a tizzy because you haven't handled the situation to the best of your ability. I thought the answer that Gautam gave, that when some journalist asked him, what about Rohit? And he said, my answer remains the same. Not the way to answer that. I thought, by the way, Gautam is a good friend of mine, and you know that.
I like
Gautam
him as well.
is, no one can ever doubt Gautam's commitment. But the way he handles the media, I think needs to be improved. And I think that is sometime Gautam needs to sort of take a step back, introspect. That could have been done better. Rohit Sharma in the practice session that day, he wasn't batting. I actually walked up to him and that video went viral. And by the way, I didn't ask him if you're playing because he's a mate of mine. I said, are you not batting? He said, I'm out there in 5 minutes. He came out, he batted for 10 minutes. He was just doing knockdown.
Yeah.
Everybody could understand this guy's not there.
Yeah, he knew he wasn't playing,
He knew he wasn't playing. 18 hours later, the whole world will know. Why is this lack of transparency? Now to answer your next question, Rohit Sharma is India's captain in the Champions Trophy. Make no mistake in white ball cricket.
India's next tournament
is Champions
Trophy. And Rohit Sharma, is Bumrah fit?
That's the other point that I'll come to. Just to finish the Rohit Sharma part, India is going to play England in a T20 series and an ODI series in 10 days' time. Obviously, Rohit is not going to play the T20s because bilateral T20s are not relevant. Secondly, he and Virat have both retired from T20s. Rohit Sharma will captain the England ODI series and thereafter go and captain the Champions Trophy. I asked two of the people who are very closely in the know, our sources, and they said, quote, nothing has changed. That means Rohit Sharma very much in the saddle. I also spoke to Rohit the night he left in Australia to go back home. He will captain Champions Trophy and he absolutely wants to win that. Because for him now, the Champions Trophy has become 200 times more important.
India's playing in a test match in a week's time. Bumrah's fit. Who's the captain of the Indian test team?
Excellent question. At this point in time, before they play domestic cricket, and the coach has alluded to it, a lot of former players have alluded to it. Look, I have always felt that it is the responsibility of a player to put himself out there for selection. Let the selection committee have the guts to drop them. If I was Ajit Agarkar, the chairman of selectors, I would have said, listen, go back to domestic cricket, play your Ranji Trophy, you've not played for years, and then make a comeback to the test team. My problem here is, and this is a serious one, India is playing England in summer. Before that, we play Champions Trophy, we play IPL. Where is the time to go back to domestic cricket?
There's no domestic cricket.
So, they have the option, post-IPL, to go with the India A team to England. Will Virat and Rohit travel with the India A team to England, play the England Lions and make a red ball comeback?
No way.
And let me ask you this. How does Virat solve this problem? This problem that has now crept, you have been one of the greatest batters of your era, perhaps one of the greatest in the world of all time. How does Virat Kohli solve this outside off-stump problem? And can he?
He's a good enough player and a very good problem solver. So yes, he can. He certainly can. But I don't think it's about changing your game. I think he's too... Muscle memory is instilled. He's at a stage of his career where if he thinks if he go to the nets and just practice letting that ball go, as soon as he gets into a game under pressure, muscle memory is going to happen. He's still going to push at that ball. It's not letting the ball go. It's intent. It might be his foot a tiny bit closer to that ball, so he's not outside edging it. He's defending it. At certain stages through this series, you saw Virat Kohli, the ball that he's nicking, you also saw him play defend. You saw him drive through cover. You saw him make 100. Like, sometimes we look too closely at our deficiencies or our faults and not close enough at our strengths. This guy is a one-of-a-kind player. One-of-a-kind player. He needs to keep believing that. And I don't think he needs to let that ball go. I think if he's intents to score, if he's intents to get bat on ball, if he does let the ball go, but sometimes he gets his foot closer instead of nicking it because his foot's a little bit away or his head's a bit off it or he's not as confident as he was. He's defending that ball. So I don't think it's about... Sachin was a different player to Virat Kohli. A lot of people through this Australian summer were saying Sachin did it in a test match. He got out cover driving a couple of times and then he let it go and made it 200 at the SCG.
Correct.
Sachin is a different player to Virat. Virat's greatest strength is bat on ball. He just plays it in a different way. So bat on ball is fine. Energy, intent, moving your feet, get forward, get back. That's his strength. So get closer to the ball. You want to hit it, get closer to it. Get your foot close to the ball. Get your head close to the ball. Once it gets too wide that you can't get closer, you naturally will let that go. I don't think Virat needs to look at it as a weakness. I think he needs to go, right, I've got to be sharper with my feet. I've got to have more intent. I've got to be more confident. I think he's got to get back to...
Do you think he still has red ball left for England?
It's Virat Kohli. This guy can walk out and make a double 100 tomorrow. He's that good a player. If somebody's silly enough to write Virat Kohli off, mate, more fool them. This guy could play... He should play all three formats until he's had enough. If he retires from Test cricket right now, I'm telling you, there's only one team losing out. It's India. If I was captain of any team that Virat Kohli was in, even though I know he didn't make as many runs as he would have liked, I'm fighting for him to stay in my team. This guy's a once-in-a-generation player. But he's gone through this high and low. That's what greatness is. Ups and downs.
If you were in his position, would you play the India A game, India A team before the England series and get your eye in for red ball?
I would ask my captain, my coach, my selectors, what is important? What is the most important thing to Indian cricket, to our team? What do you want me to do? Do you want me to play? I've retired from from 2020 cricket, so I'm not playing that. Do you want me to play one day? Is the Champions Trophy important? Yes, then I'm coming. Is the Test series in England important? Is there a chance I can play some cricket in England to get into form before the first test? I would love to, but you have to work it. Like, you can't play everything. This is the other thing, and you know better than anyone. The IPL
is massive.
And the Champions Trophy for India, massive. Those two tournaments, I don't think other countries understand. Like, I don't think Australia understands that how big the Champions Trophy is for India.
It's huge.
The IPL, I see the IPL like this. It's like if you play for the Socceroos in Australia, but your club team in the EPL is Manchester City.
You play Manchester City first.
Okay, but if Bumrah's not fit for the IPL, can you imagine? If Virat Kohli's not fit for the IPL, can you imagine? They have to be. That tournament for Indian cricketers is set exactly the same as playing for your country.
100%.
Right?
Because the ecosystem is run by that one
Virat
tournament.
can't play every format, every game, and then find room to go and play for India A. It's okay to bat and score runs, but you got to be mentally fresh as well. So I think the balance between Virat Kohli in what he knows his game, he knows himself very well, but also what the Indian cricket team wants, they have to come together, prioritise certain things, pick what is most important, and then together make that decision. But I think there's so many runs left in Virat's career in any format he wants.
And so to sum this point up, because this is a debate that is raging in India, should Virat Kohli retire from red ball cricket? You say no.
If he wants to.
No, as in
should he be dropped?
Yeah,
should he be pushed to? No way. Mate, this guy's a once-in-a-generation player. I'm keeping Virat Kohli in my team as long as I possibly can. I don't want him to go anywhere. He'll find ways to... He made 100. First test, second innings. First test, second test.
First
test, second innings. He made 100. 3 test matches ago, he made 100. Or 4 test matches ago, he made 100. And he's not batting his best, but he still found a way. That's what the great players do. Like, Steve Smith was under pressure. He made 200s. Like, that's what happens with great players.
And even in Melbourne, he was batting... In Melbourne, before that run-out happened, Virat Kohli was batting really well.
And again, same thing. Everyone says he allowed the bowler to come to him. No, he had intent. He was looking for the ball in his area. He let that ball go on some occasions, but he blocked that ball. The ball that he's nicking, he blocked in the middle of the bat. That's the way the game goes. Also, I hate to say it, conditions were tough for batting in this series. For all batters. Conditions were extremely tough. And if you lost wickets early... A new ball on a pitch at Simi against a very good Australian attack, it's not easy batting. I think Virat has so much to offer, and I think it would be a huge loss to the Indian cricket team if he walked away, retired from Test cricket. I would be begging him to stay. You got a massive series coming up against England. If you're going to win that series...
You need Virat?
Virat probably needs to be the leading run scorer. That's how important he is. Bumrah needs to be fit and probably be the leading wicket taker. That's how important Bumrah is. Nothing's changed, mate. That expectation on Sachin Tendulkar, Virat Kohli, these guys, that's there in every series. And that's what makes them great, because 95% of the time, they always are the leading run scorer.
Correct, and they've delivered.
Yeah.
Just to switch it a little bit, there is so much talk, even in India, about Sam Konstas. Yes, the first test, the way he kind of, showed that ramp shot and all of that. In the second innings, Bumrah had worked him out. He has a weakness against the incoming delivery from what we saw. But the moot point I'm wanting to ask is that controversy between Bumrah and Sam Konstas when Usman Khwaja was taking a bit of time, right? Sam Konstas starts saying a few things to Bumrah. By the way, he's gone and said maybe in hindsight he should not have. But for an Australian coach to come and say that Indians were intimidating Sam Konstas, they swarmed in and all of that. I mean, you guys did that in Sydney in 2008. You guys I criticized him like, come on. How is it that Australia is not kind of taking it when they give it all the time?
Nah, look, at the end, it was instilled in me as a young player that when you're on the field, it was 11 versus 2. That was just the Australian way. If a batter said something to one of the fielders, then your team supports them. If Sam wants to say something, Sam's young, confident, even if it's overconfident, whatever it is, if he wants to say something, you better be willing to cop it. That's the way it goes. You can't pick and choose when you're 19 years of age. You can't pick and choose, I just want good press, I don't want bad press. Welcome to the big leagues. Welcome to Test cricket. You want to have a crack at the best bowler in the world, or you want to get involved in a conversation or whatever. I don't even know what happened on the field. But if you want to get involved, you better be ready for them to come at you. And I don't think Sam was bothered.
I think he was okay. He
I
just
think
walked off.
mate, it's fine. The whole series I thought was brilliant. Tough, competitive cricket on the field. I don't see a problem with any of it. Suraj, the sledging, Travis Head, the blood, loved it.
Yeah,
Loved it.
Without all
entertaining. Amazing series. Have a look at what we have just seen in regards to cricket fans turning up and watching this series. It shows Test cricket is rocking in this country. Now we need it to go to every other Test playing nation's country and be the same.
I think Australia, and I'm making this point as an Indian, I think Australia led the way in terms of how to appreciate Test match cricket.
Yep.
MCG, 90,000, 89,000, 87,000, Sydney Cricket Ground, close to 50,000 on all days. It was something extraordinary to see that kind of support.
Yeah. Well, the fans showing up, the fans, I think, in Australia have said we still love Test cricket, and they showed it this summer.
I also think it shows how much the Indian team is loved in different parts of the world and supported.
100%.
Already the England series is sold out. Australia was sold out. So it shows the brand that India is now in world cricket. Yeah. I thought the end was slightly problematic. I thought Sunil Gavaskar and Allan Border should have both been there to present that trophy.
I agree with you 100%. Now, for a lot of people that don't know, this decision was made before the Test series started. If Australia were to win, Allan Border would present the trophy. If India were to win, Sunil Gavaskar would present the trophy. I think there's the mistake there. Yeah. Listen, when you've got two legends that the trophy's named after, both of them should have been up on that stage presenting the trophy to whoever won, in my opinion. So I feel for Sonny. It sounds to me like he was offended, and I think fair enough too. I think if you had asked Allan Border, he would have wanted. They're great friends. Absolutely. He would have wanted Sonny right beside him.
And if you think back, they started it together. They walked out with the trophy in Perth. And you close out with them, that's a gesture. And also, remember, think about it, the iconic photograph, Sunny Gavaskar, Allan Border, two of the greatest captains, after an intensely fought series, India, Australia are together. Whatever happens on the field, happens on the field. Yeah. These are two of the greatest teams in world cricket, forever will be. I thought an opportunity was lost.
Yep, I agree. Let's do this, because we've spoken on this podcast about every Test match, but I think now we have the opportunity to actually look back, and I'm very keen on your take around every Indian player that was involved in the series. So let's mark, you do India.
You do Australia.
I'll do Australia. You got to mark the player out of 10.
Okay, done.
So you go through the Indian team and give me a mark out of 10 for every individual player that played in this
Okay,
series.
so let's start with Jaiswal because I thought he came of age. All of us were questioning if he's good enough in Australian conditions against fast bowling, bounce, pace, seam. I thought he stood out. I will give him 7.5 out of 10, Jaiswal.
Yep.
KL Rahul, I thought petered down, but started well. But one of the reasons petered down was because his batting order was messed up. You can't say 1, 3, 6 and you kind of make him go up, down the order. There was no reason for Rohit Sharma to all of a sudden come and open. KL Rahul was doing a decent job. Melbourne, they messed it up. So KL Rahul, plus I will add his slip catching, which I thought was extraordinary. In a test series, you need that. I'll give KL Rahul 6.5. 6.5 out of 10. He could have been better with the last 2 tests, but he still stood out for me. Shubman Gill, again, someone we've been talking up for the longest time as one of the best batters, next generation and all of that, showed zero game awareness. That dart down to Nathan Lyon was stupid in the second innings to try and hit Bo Webster to cow corner. For what? When Rishabh Pant was going hard at the other end. I will give Shubman Gill 1.5 out of 10. Not even, and 1.5 because he looked good in Adelaide. He looked good in patches. So he can play. The problem with Shubman Gill is his game awareness. If he has to bat 3 for India, he must know 30s will not do the job in Test cricket. 20s will not do the job. You are in, go get 100. That's when you become a great. Virat Kohli, 2 parts to it. Virat Kohli's batting plus his leadership. In the absence of Bumrah, he was excellent when India got those 5 Australian wickets. I'll give him 5 because that weakness is an issue now. But he got that 100 in Perth. He looked decent in Melbourne. And he rallied the team very well in Sydney, at least in the first innings. So 5 for me. Rohit Sharma, practically nothing because poor series with the bat, let the captaincy thing drift as well. I thought he was flat in Melbourne. Australia 310 for 6 went to 474. Second innings 94 for 6, kill them for 130. We win the game. 235 chase. So Rohit Sharma won because of the way he conducted himself when he was dropped, stepped down, moved aside or whatever. He conducted himself with a lot of poise and dignity. So I'll give him that. Rishabh Pant, I'll give him 5.5 or 6 because every time he got in. Look, had it been another wicketkeeper batter, we would have said 25-30 is good enough because traditionally that has been a good score. With Rishabh Pant, the expectation is what he did in 21, what he did in 18. He got hundreds in Australia. But that last innings where he showed game awareness, he clearly is one of the best and he will be a generational player. So 6.5 for me. Ravindra Jadeja did not stand up. I thought could have been better with the ball. Again, a better batter as well. After that 77, petered down. So maybe a 4.5. Washington Sundar, no real rating because wasn't even allowed to bowl. So no real rating there. Mohammad Siraj, blow hot, blow cold. I thought and he's a friend of mine, my expectation from Mohammad Siraj was he'll stand up. He'll be an improved bowler. 2 innings. Melbourne second, Sydney first was the Mohammad Siraj I wanted to see. In the absence of Bumrah, spiciest wicket, kill it, win the match, I wanted to see. Did not see that. So maybe a 4.5 for Mohammad Siraj. Akashdeep, got his opportunity first series of Australia. Won't be harsh on him. Maybe a 3.5 or a 4. Harshit Rana bowled very well in Perth.
Yeah.
I think has talent, hit the deck. Maybe a 4 and Jasprit Bumrah to close out. 11 on 10. Did everything in the world. 100 on 10.
Yeah.
So everything possible. 32 wickets. Maybe you can say he broke down, but that's not in his hands. But Jasprit Bumrah, 11 on 10 because I think he's the standout player in both teams.
Yeah, I think I couldn't agree more with the Bumrah. Rightio, Aussies. I'm going to go short and sharpy. Khawaja didn't have a series that he probably wanted. I'm going to give Khawaja 5. Nathan McSweeney only played a couple of games. I was so disappointed the way he got treated, so I don't think he can have a rating. Or if I do, I'll give him. He didn't score as many runs as I'll give him a 4. Sam Konstas. Highs, lows, young player, only played a couple of tests as well. I think phenomenal talent, but again, 5 for his performances. Marnus Labuschagne, poor, wonderful player. Really like the way he plays, but I don't think he stood up in this series and I expected a lot more from him, so I'm going to give him a 3. Steve Smith, 2 brilliant hundreds. His fielding's exceptional as well. Again, I think numbers-wise, he'll be disappointed with what he averaged, but I think Smitty played pretty well in tough situations, so I'm going to give him a 7.5 out of 10. Travis Head, stand out, our number 1 batsman. Trav can have a 9 out of 10. Couple of low scores, but I thought he played really well. Mitch Marsh, disappointed. I don't know what it looks like now in Test cricket for Mitch Marsh. He's now got 2 very good all-rounders in front of him. So the fight to get back into the team is going to be very difficult. So I'm going to give Mitch 2 out of 10. Captain Paddy Cummins, I thought, was outstanding with the ball. His batting was brilliant as well. And I think he was probably Australia's best player as leader. So I'm going to give Paddy, if it's not a 10, I'll give him a 9. I'll give him a 9. I thought he was brilliant. Nathan Lyon didn't have much impact in the 5 test matches. Again, a good example of the conditions.
Correct.
You know, Nathan Lyon bowls brilliantly in Australia, so it wasn't his fault. Just conditions didn't suit. So Lino can have a 5. Scotty Boland, wow. If he only bowled in Australia, he's your first big bowler. Unbelievable once again. Loves these conditions, hits the seam, the type of bloke you want around the group. Again, like Scotty, he's got to be a 9 out of 10. Josh Hazlewood, again, numbers-wise, did well in the 2 test matches, but I think he'll be really disappointed. This is a big series. This series against India and the series against England next summer is huge, and our bowlers all of our players are getting older, but our bowlers particularly, I think Josh will be really disappointed that and nobody plans to get injured, but he'll be disappointed that he missed majority of this series. So Josh can have a 5, and Bo Webster, test debut.
Fabulous.
Doesn't get, I know you'd love 105 on test debut, but it doesn't get much better in tough conditions to get your first opportunity, to hit the winning runs, catching outstanding as well. Bat bowl field. This guy is a very, very talented and senior player. He's been around first class cricket for a long time. So on debut, I reckon Bo's getting a 9 as well. So there's probably my ratings for the Australian team. And again,
what's your prediction for Australia, Sri Lanka?
2 tests in Gaul. I'd imagine they'll be raging turners.
Prabhat Jayasuriya.
I think Australia wins 2-0.
Australia wins 2-0.
Australia wins 2-0. I think Australia takes so much confidence out of just beating India. Now, I believe this. I believe this series result against India is more important to Australia winning than India losing. Now, to make sense of that, what I mean is I think India losing to New Zealand in their own backyard, that's harder to take.
I agree.
You're expected to win in your own backyard. So I expected Australia to win this series in our conditions. If we went to India and India didn't win, different story. So I think we should have won. We were expected to win. We did win, and the players should be patted on the back. They played brilliant cricket. But you're allowed to lose on an away tour. India's allowed to lose here.
And India won 2018, India won 2021, which is why now, to put it in context, those 2 wins, away tours in Australia, the 2 greatest high points of Indian cricket. To beat Australia and Australia twice, 18 and 21, incredible. This time round, I agree with you, New Zealand is a much harder pill to swallow on home soil than this one. This one I'll take. 1-3, fair result. If you had beaten New Zealand, India is still in the WTC final.
Well, I can tell you from my career, beating India in India sits at the top of the tree. That is something that I will cherish for the rest of my life. To win over there is so tough. And that's how it should be. Playing in your own conditions.
And the 6 for 9 that you got it at the
that was a fluke. Buddy, what a series. I think it's had absolutely everything. I think we've both been very lucky to be a part of this series, to watch both teams play, the brand of cricket. You know, I love on this podcast that I've had the opportunity to talk about individual players, both pros and cons, pick out certain moments that really stand out. You know, for as a cricket fan to see, you know, Bumrah, this bowler, come and bowl in Australian conditions and show the world how good he is. Pat Cummins' leadership to grow. Individual superstars stand up. Like Travis Head's batting at the moment. We see it in the IPL, but he's now doing it in Test cricket. The intent, the way they play, some young players coming in and making their debuts and really standing up. There hasn't been too many things that this series hasn't thrown at us.
See, I'll say this. I'll say the crowds. As an Indian Test cricket tragic, I don't see that in India. I thought was incredible.
Yep.
Melbourne Cricket Ground, 90,000. Sydney Cricket Ground, 50,000. Right through the series, the support. The multiculturalism that was there, the appropriation and the support that India got was brilliant. What you just said, all these guys will go to the IPL. Pat Cummins and Travis Head, they will be appropriated once again as Indian superstars also. That kind of has helped as well. Also the rivalry. I think this is as big as the Ashes, if not the foremost rivalry in world cricket at the moment. I also think this whole India, Australia, England talk that is going on under Jai Shah has merit, because these are the three countries that pull the world as far as Test cricket is concerned.
Agree.
So I think India, Australia, if not bigger, is at least as big a rivalry as the Ashes now. And these two teams' pride in winning against each other, it brought the best out of each other. And these little stories, Sam Konstas versus Bumrah and Travis Head versus Siraj, I think they're good for the sport.
Yeah, I agree.
Without these characters, if you have flat people, then you don't have stories to tell. And as a storyteller myself, if you want a story, we would not make Michael Clarke a hero or a fall guy.
Yeah.
These things add to the spice of sports reportage.
agree.
I think it was a great series.
Buddy, I can't thank you enough for coming on our podcast. Absolutely love having you.
If I start the thank yous, it'll be 100 because you've done that 100 times for me, and there will be another 100. So every time, wherever, anytime, any part of the world, whatever you need will be done.
Guys, don't forget to follow us at Beyond 23 Cricket Pod on Instagram and subscribe to our YouTube page. Whether you're watching here on YouTube or listening via our preferred podcast platform, we've got a huge year ahead. We'll be back with the Sri Lanka versus Australia series, and what a two-match series that is going to be. Thank you so much for your support.